Imagine doing everything right. You wake up before sunrise every day. You work overtime whenever it's available. You skip expensive vacations. You drive the same car for years. You avoid credit card debt. Every month, you transfer part of your paycheck into a savings account, convinced you're building a safer future. From the outside, it looks like financial discipline. But years later, you open your account expecting to feel secure. And instead, you realize something disturbing. The money is still there. Yet somehow, it doesn't buy what it used to. The house you wanted now costs twice as much. Groceries that once filled an entire cart barely fill half. Healthcare is more expensive. Insurance premiums keep rising. Even basic necessities seem to get more expensive every year. The question is no longer, where did my money go? The question becomes, why did my money lose its power while I was doing everything right? This isn't a rare story. It's happening quietly to millions of hardworking people around the world. Not because they're reckless, not because they're lazy, but because they fell into one of the biggest financial traps that almost nobody talks about. And the frightening part? You can spend years believing you're getting ahead while in reality, you're slowly falling behind. Today, we're going to investigate how this happens. We'll follow the story of one ordinary worker whose financial plan seemed nearly perfect, until one invisible mistake erased years of progress. Because once you understand this trap, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Let's call him David. He's not a millionaire. He's not a financial expert. He's simply someone who believed in one rule that many of us were taught growing up. Work hard, save your money, stay out of debt. So that's exactly what he did. After graduating, David landed a stable job. Nothing glamorous, just steady income. Every payday, he followed the same routine. Pay the bills, avoid unnecessary spending, move money into savings, repeat. Friends spent money on luxury cars. David didn't. Some financed expensive vacations. David stayed home. Others upgraded their phones every year. David kept his until it stopped working. For nearly 10 years, his lifestyle barely changed. His savings account grew month after month. Watching that balance increase gave him confidence. He believed every extra dollar represented freedom. Freedom from emergencies. Freedom from financial stress. Freedom to buy a home someday. By every traditional measure, he was winning, or so he thought. Then something happened. His landlord announced another rent increase. At first, David wasn't worried. After all, he'd been saving for years. Maybe now was finally the time to buy a house. He contacted a mortgage broker, started browsing listings, calculated his budget. Everything seemed promising until reality hit. The homes he had been looking at just a few years earlier had increased dramatically in price. Properties that once seemed affordable were now completely out of reach. Even with years of disciplined saving, he couldn't keep up. His down payment suddenly represented a much smaller percentage of the home's value than he expected. Meanwhile, mortgage rates had changed. Monthly payments looked far higher than they once had. His dream wasn't disappearing overnight. It had been slipping away slowly, without him noticing. Confused, David began asking questions. Had he spent too much? No. Was he drowning in debt? Not at all. Did he lose money investing? He never invested. So where had everything gone wrong? That's when he discovered something that changed how he viewed money forever. The problem wasn't only how much he had saved. It was where he had saved it. This is where our investigation begins. For decades, many people believed keeping cash in a savings account was the safest financial decision possible. Technically, it is relatively safe from market swings. Your account balance usually doesn't fluctuate dramatically from one day to the next. That stability feels comforting. But safety has another side that most people never think about, because while your bank balance stays the same, the world around it doesn't. Every year, prices change, sometimes slowly, sometimes shockingly fast. Food, housing, transportation, education, healthcare, utilities. Almost everything becomes more expensive over time. Economists call this inflation. Most people know the word. Very few truly understand what it means for their everyday lives. Inflation doesn't steal money from your bank account. Instead, it quietly steals what that money can actually buy. Imagine placing an ice cube on a table. At first glance, it still looks like an ice cube, but minute by minute, it's getting smaller, even though no one is touching it. No dramatic headlines saying your savings just became less valuable today. The change happens so gradually that most people don't notice until they're ready to make a major purchase. And by then, the damage has already been done. David wasn't alone. Researchers, economists, and financial planners have warned about this effect for decades. Yet millions continue measuring success by one simple number: their account balance. Not realizing that the number itself tells only half the story. Because wealth isn't just about how many dollars you have. It's about what those dollars can actually do for you. And that's where the hidden money trap begins. But inflation is only one piece of the puzzle. As David continued investigating, he uncovered another force. One that's even more dangerous because it tricks people into believing they're making progress while they're actually standing still. And once you see how these two forces work together, you'll understand why so many hardworking people reach middle age wondering where all their financial progress went. For years, he believed saving money was the answer to financial security. But now he realized that saving alone wasn't enough. If inflation quietly reduced the purchasing power of his money every year, then what was the alternative? He started digging deeper. He read books, listened to economists, studied personal finance research. And one pattern kept appearing over and over again. The people who seemed to stay ahead financially weren't necessarily the ones earning the highest salaries. They were the ones who understood one simple principle: money has to work, not just sit. That sounds obvious today, but for David, it completely changed the way he thought about wealth. Then he discovered another uncomfortable truth. Inflation wasn't his only enemy. There was another force working against him every single year. It was called lifestyle inflation. And unlike economic inflation, this one came from his own decisions. Think about what happens when someone gets a raise. Most people imagine they'll save the extra money, maybe invest it. A larger apartment suddenly feels reasonable. A newer car seems affordable. Eating out becomes more frequent. Streaming subscriptions pile up. The occasional online purchase becomes a weekly habit. Individually, none of these decisions seem dangerous. In fact, each one feels deserved. I've worked hard. I can afford it. I've earned this. The problem isn't enjoying life. The problem is when every increase in income is matched by an increase in spending. Without realizing it, people create a lifestyle that requires every dollar they earn. The paycheck grows, but financial freedom doesn't. David recognized something surprising. He hadn't fallen into extreme lifestyle inflation, but he had done something almost as damaging. He believed that simply saving cash would automatically move him closer to his goals. In reality, he had been standing on a treadmill, working harder, saving more, yet barely moving forward. Economists often describe money as having an opportunity cost. Every dollar sitting idle represents something it could have been doing instead. That doesn't mean everyone should chase risky investments or try to time the stock market. It means understanding that every financial decision has trade-offs. Cash provides stability and liquidity. That's important. But keeping every long-term dollar in cash can mean sacrificing future purchasing power. Finding the right balance is what matters. David wished someone had explained that years earlier. Instead, he'd been taught only one lesson: save. No one had explained what should happen after the saving. As his research continued, David stumbled across a statistic that stopped him in his tracks. Historically, inflation has averaged several percent per year in many economies over long periods. That may not sound dramatic, but over 10, 20, or 30 years, even modest inflation can significantly reduce what the same amount of money can buy. That's why grandparents often tell stories about buying a meal, a house, or even a car for a fraction of today's prices. The money didn't necessarily become smaller. Its purchasing power changed, slowly, relentlessly, almost invisibly. That's what makes this trap so dangerous. People don't panic because they don't see an obvious loss. There's no red number flashing on a bank statement. Instead, they discover the truth years later, when they're buying a home, planning retirement, paying university tuition, or covering medical expenses. By then, time has become the biggest cost. David also noticed something else. The media often focuses on dramatic financial disasters, stock market crashes, bank failures, economic recessions. Those stories make headlines because they're sudden. So David asked himself one difficult question. If I could go back 10 years, what would I do differently? His answer surprised him. He wouldn't stop saving. He would simply give every dollar a purpose. Some money would remain easily accessible for emergencies. Some would be reserved for short-term goals. And money intended for the distant future would no longer sit idle without a plan. That distinction changed everything. Perhaps the biggest lesson David learned had nothing to do with economics. It was psychological. Humans naturally prefer certainty. A savings account feels predictable. Investment markets fluctuate. That uncertainty makes many people uncomfortable. But avoiding all uncertainty can sometimes create a different risk. The certainty that your money gradually loses purchasing power over time. Understanding risk isn't just about asking, "What could I lose?" It's also about asking, what could happen if I do nothing? That second question is the one most people never ask. And for David, it became the turning point. He finally realized that standing still financially isn't always standing still. Sometimes it's quietly moving backward. David's investigation had started with one simple question. How could someone work hard, avoid debt, save consistently, and still fall behind? Now he finally had the answer. It wasn't one catastrophic mistake. It was a series of small decisions that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time. Keeping too much money idle for too long. Assuming a growing bank balance automatically meant growing wealth. Ignoring the gradual impact of inflation because it wasn't immediately visible. And measuring success by the amount of money saved instead of what that money could actually accomplish. That was the hidden money trap. And once David understood it, he stopped asking, "How much money do I have?" Instead, he began asking, "Is my money helping me reach the future I want?" That single shift in mindset changed everything. But here's something that's important to understand. This isn't an argument against saving. In fact, saving is one of the most important financial habits anyone can build. Without savings, unexpected expenses can quickly become financial emergencies. A medical bill, a car repair, job loss, home maintenance. These situations are exactly why financial experts consistently recommend maintaining an emergency fund. David also realized something that no school had ever taught him. Building wealth isn't about making perfect decisions. It's about avoiding the expensive mistakes that quietly compound over time. Think about it this way. Imagine two friends, both 25 years old. They earn similar salaries. Both save the same amount every month. One leaves every long-term dollar sitting idle for decades. The other follows a thoughtful long-term financial plan that's appropriate for their goals and risk tolerance. For the first few years, their financial lives look almost identical. But 20 years later, the difference can be enormous. David couldn't change the past. He couldn't recover the years when his money slowly lost purchasing power. But he could change what happened next. He created clear financial goals. He learned the difference between saving for emergencies and planning for long-term growth. He reviewed his finances regularly instead of assuming everything was fine. The truth is, the hidden money trap doesn't care how intelligent you are. It doesn't care whether you earn $40,000 a year or $400,000. It doesn't care whether you're just starting your career or approaching retirement. So, what's the lesson from David's story? It's not that saving is wrong. It's not that investing guarantees success. And it's certainly not that there's one perfect strategy for everyone. The real lesson is this: money is a tool. Like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how it's used. If you never use it, it can't help build the future you want. So before you close this video, ask yourself one question. If you looked back 10 years from today, would you be proud of the financial decisions you're making right now? Are your savings aligned with your goals? Do you have a plan for both today's emergencies and tomorrow's opportunities? Or are you simply hoping that time will solve everything on its own? Because time always changes your money. The only question is how. And that's why the hidden money trap is so dangerous. If you found this investigation valuable, remember that financial success isn't about chasing shortcuts or overnight wealth. It's about understanding the forces that shape your money and making informed decisions before those forces make the decisions for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next investigation.